Welcome back for episode 2. Last time that we talked, you were fulfilling your civic duty of being on jury duty. You couldn't say anything. You were being very good about not saying anything. I had no idea. So now we need to know, what was it like? Tell us how the case was. Give us the details that you can.
Oh my God, Jen, I've been like bottling this up. It went into 4 weeks of jury duty.
Crazy.
It wasn't every day. It was actually 12 individual days that spread out over the course of 4 weeks. And from there's craziness from the day of jury selection until the day of the verdict, full of crazy stories. I was like basically bottling up because every single time you entered or left the room, they said, don't talk about this with anyone because if you do, it could impact the validity of the verdict. But now I can. And they literally say, once there's a verdict in, you can kind of say whatever you want. That said, this case was a civil case, meaning someone was suing someone else. It wasn't a criminal case, like the police were trying to convict someone of a crime. And it was involving a family. And so I don't really necessarily want to blow them up too much,
Fair
but
enough.
it was a crazy story. And so I want to tell basically what happened, some lessons we should all draw from avoiding getting into a situation like this, and then the verdict we came to. And so here's the basic story: is a grandma and grandpa, and there's really 4 plaintiffs, all in their 80s. And basically grandma owned some properties, and her daughter and her granddaughter and their 2 husbands, those 4 people, all lived in these properties over the course of 20 years. And at one point, the kids were like, hey, we want to upgrade to another property. And so grandma sold one of the properties, put this $300,000 or so down payment onto the next property and said, hey, here's the deal. I'll put in the down payment to get you guys in. You guys pay for everything. You pay for the mortgage, you pay for the taxes, you pay for the upkeep. And then when you can pay me back or when you can refinance the loan, we'll roll my down payment out of that into the next rental property that we have. And so that's, I'm just trying to give you this very brief overview. And this was, like I said, a 12-day case. So it was very complex beyond this, but that was the basic idea. So that all happened. They got in the home. Then they did this refinance and did not give grandma her money back. And as part of the refinance, the kids had to take grandma off the title. And grandma signed a letter basically saying, this is a gift. I'm giving them the entire house, bona fide gift, for free, for nothing. And she did it for the purposes of the kids being able to refinance their loan.
Mm-hmm.
And her expectation was a week later, once the loan is secured, they're going to put the title back in her name because she still owns the property until she gets paid back her down payment. But that never happened. And so then as we were sitting there in the jury, watching this case, the increasingly frantic emails from this 80-year-old woman, I was like, hey, I put this in your name very temporarily so you guys could get this refi, and you're not signing it back to me. What's going on here? And fast forward 4 years, now we're in court to decide this. And that was one, there's actually 15, I'm doing the 555 action if you're listening, causes of action. That was that was a few of them because they split it up for a few different ways. But then the kids and grandkids were countersuing for 7 other reasons, including things for the 10 years we lived in your property, 55 months of those were uninhabitable because you, as a slumlord, the conditions were so terrible.
Slumlord?
Yeah, I know. You ruined our property because you had, during a remodel, your workers moved our couch outside and it got rained on. There's a loan. There's another loan for rent that went back and forth. There's an eviction notice at one point. The whole thing was this gigantic mess. And it was it was just so messy because it was this covered multiple properties over the course of literally 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And both sides, once they decided they hated each other, threw all this spaghetti against the wall to see what would stick. And then me and the other 11 jurors were put in a room to decide, okay, who's who. And that $300,000 deposit that never got paid back and grandma got taken off the title was kind of the core piece of it, I think. But then there's all these other little side issues that they were airing. And so that's what happened. Some lessons I learned is a big first one, and this really made me appreciate all the problems I don't have in my life, because to my own credit, and I didn't even realize it before I was sat here watching this, I have not gotten into these types of situations. I'm not putting in down payments and having other people pay the loan and taking names on and off titles and getting into these, like, these really murky, complex situations. Like, I own my properties. When I was single, I own them. Now that I'm married, my wife and I own them, which is, murkier than being single a little bit. But, marriage introduces that kind of complexity. But I'm not getting into these very complex deals with multiple people and yada, yada, yada. And so I think that is like a good lesson about just having very clear boundaries in your own personal life and your own financial life. And then another really big lesson is, I think you should never loan money to family. And that sounds cold-hearted, but my take is, if you want to help family, you need to find peace with it being a gift. And so when grandma was getting into this really sticky situation where it's like, okay, I'm going to give you the $300K, but I need it back, she was opening up this potential problem where the kids became, in my opinion, comfortable with it. Like, well, we're paying for the house. She's off title now. It's really ours. She said along the, over the years, this was going to be our inheritance. So why not now, kind of thing. And then the two sides end up hating each other. And so grandma should have gifted it to him. And I actually, when I was talking about this on Instagram, someone messaged me. They said, hey, here's my deal. I'll give you money. I'll give it to you as a gift. If you pay it back to me, great. Maybe I'll give you another gift. If you don't, that's the end of it. Right. Either way, I'm at peace. I've chosen that to be a gift, and you have the decision as the recipient if it's a loan or if it's a gift, and if you want to continue down this bank of friend or bank of family. So that was the situation.
Wow.
Do you want to hear how we ruled?
Yes.
Okay. And so, it was a little bit sticky because grandma signed this legal, notarized, filed with the county document that said, this is a bona fide gift. You get this house for free, for nothing in return. And, as a jury, I don't want to get into the deliberations too much because that was like a private thing and maybe it could open up the case to appeal or whatever. But as a jury, we're having to decide, is that ironclad, or do we have to weigh all the evidence, the emails, the context, the deal, the behavior? And, one thing that we never saw in the trial was the outraged emails from the kids saying, what do you mean you want this house back? This was always a gift. Nothing like that ever happened. So to us, it became exceedingly clear that this was always meant to be this complex temporary loan situation. And so we gave grandma back her money. We gave grandma back her $300.
Grandma!
Yeah. So grandma got, I mean, I'm happy for her too. And, but I don't think she came out a winner. I don't think anyone came out a winner.
Right.
Like, the family seems to be torn apart. I hope they can overcome this. But yeah, grandma got her money. We didn't give kids money for the uninhabitable thing. I was like, that didn't come up until they got sued. And then they decided, for 55 months of living here, raising my kids, throwing parties, doing remodels, this was uninhabitable. We're like, okay,
that's shady.
That doesn't seem to be legitimate. And we were forced to, judge or be the jury of truth. And what people were saying wasn't always consistent and things like that. And so that's what we did. Have you ever been on a jury?
Well, I think the second week that I was here at Personal Finance Club, I got a jury duty notice. I went for jury selection. I've never actually ended up on a jury, but the annoying thing about this time around was I went for the full day, the first day, which I think everybody kind of expects. And we were so close to selecting a jury. And then I had to go back the next day at like 10 a.m. and I was dismissed by 11. Very aggravating. But, I made a couple of friends where we gave each other side eyes. Like, we could have stayed at home, girl. But so I've never actually been on a jury. But I do love the lesson of, never loaning family money specifically. Could probably extend that to friends as well.
I think so, yeah.
Always just giving freely. I think that's a good life lesson in general. I'm Kenyan. I'm first generation American. So my parents are what are considered like a sandwich generation, where they, grew up supporting me and my siblings, and then also were supporting my grandparents and aunts and uncles and things like that. And I think that my mom learned that lesson a while ago now. But it's just like, you know, you think like, oh, I'm gonna invest in this business in Kenya and it's gonna be great. And then, you know, never sees that money again. I think there's like a cycle that you have to go through because you're so attached and you love people so much that you want to just give and say like, they're gonna do the best with it and give back. And now I think she just gives freely and is more careful with her money than she was, you know, 20 years ago.
Yeah. And it's a lesson you don't want to learn the hard way because the hard way involves destroying family relationships, right?
Yeah.
And families and friends tend to be more casual about things like signing leases and late fees. You know, if you're dealing with a landlord that you don't know, they're like, okay, they're going to hit me with a late fee, and they're a business, and you know, there's this like kind of arm's length relationship where you have like a business professional respect and expectations. With family, that gets squishier, and because that's squishier, these deals can just get really messy because both sides make assumptions about the other side, and there's not this clear distinction of roles and things like that. And so, yeah, keep it gifts. Help your family if you need it, and if you need that money back, you can't afford to loan it. That's what I say.
Yeah, well, congratulations on fulfilling your civic duty. We always want sane, smart, willing people on juries. You know, I think a lot of people want to like escape jury duty. So I'm glad that I know it was inconvenient, but I'm glad that you did it, you know?
Thank you. I know. Actually, I mean, this is my second trial ever, and I actually love the process. This case specifically was very long. It was supposed to be 8 days, which is already long for a civil trial. It stretched out to 12 days and very frustrating because I felt like the attorneys were not being very respectful of our time. Like you're frustrating our on the second day, which was unnecessary. Multiply that by 12 days of every day being like, didn't we already go over this testimony? My God.
Yeah. But you made it out. I'm proud of you.